Hey guys, my name is ESO and this video covers everything you need to know about what Google Stadia actually is. It's a new game streaming platform coming out in November where you can play games at 4K 60 FPS by simply streaming it from Google servers directly to any device, be it your phone, your computer screen, or your TV, with apparently literally no latency. It sounds impossible, doesn't it? And honestly, I thought so too. Until Google sponsored me to fly out to Gamescom in Germany and test it out for myself. And I was also one of the first people allowed to capture footage of Doom Eternal running on Stadia to actually show you guys in this video so you can make up your mind for yourself what you think of it. And of course, all opinions are my own, and I've put timestamps in the description below so you can skip ahead to any relevant part of the video for you. But let me summarize what this video is going to be about. Firstly, I want to go over what is Stadia, how it works, and is it for you, and is your internet connection even fast enough to play it? You can actually test this out right now by clicking the link in the description, which will take you to Google Stadia's homepage, where you can scroll down and then just click Test Connection. Click that and then it will test your internet speed and tell you if your internet connection is good enough. More on that later though. The next thing I want to go over is how well does Stadia actually run Doom Eternal, and of course the exclusive gameplay of it running. And thirdly, what games are we going to see on it? Cyberpunk 2077 will be on it, the new Watch Dogs game is coming on it, and of course Doom Eternal. But there's a whole list of every single game at launch, linked down below in the description. And fourthly, how good is the Stadia controller that comes with it? Don't worry guys, if you're playing on PC, you can still play with a mouse and keyboard. And of course, the most important thing, the fifth thing, how much does it cost? Is it worth it? And there's actually a free version coming next year, which I'll talk about more in a moment. And lastly, guys, I've got an exclusive interview at the end of the video with the VP engineer at Stadia, where we ask him some technical questions and some other interesting stuff. So hopefully this video answers every single question you have, apart from why I'm wearing a Vault suit. But enough, let's get started, my friends, because I'm excited to tell you about Stadia. But let me start by summarizing what Stadia is. It's a cloud-based game streaming service run by Google. All you need to use it is the Google Stadia controller, which I'll talk more about in a minute, internet, and a screen to play on. All the processing of the game is done by Google, and then the image of what you're playing is sent through your Wi-Fi connection. It runs in the Chrome browser, so you can access it from any device, be it your TV, your tablet, or your mobile phone, though only the Google Pixel phone will be supported at launch. You can also run it from your computer as well, if you want to play with a mouse and keyboard instead of the Stadia controller. And you can swap seamlessly between these devices. Like you can see here, you can literally just pause the game and then unpause it on another device and just carry on playing it. At launch, the controller is actually going to have a button for doing this on the fly. Stadia's resolution actually changes to match your internet speed, anywhere from 720p 60 FPS at 10 megabytes per second download speed, all the way to 4K 60 FPS at 30 megabytes per second download speed. And you can test that for yourself by using the link down below, which takes you to the Stadia website. That will give you an idea of what speed you'll be getting. So how exactly does this differ from a normal PC or console setup? Well, traditionally you have a wireless or wired HDMI connection to the internet to transmit gameplay, and then wireless controllers to issue game inputs. But with Stadia, you remove the need for buying the console or PC, and you just have a controller connecting to Google Stadia's servers through your Wi-Fi. And then it transmits both the gameplay and your input straight into your screen, so you can see it. But I know you guys are thinking, surely ESO, there's going to be some kind of lag or latency if I'm playing wirelessly through a server at Google. And I really was very doubtful about this, and I thought the same thing. But as you can see from the Doom Eternal gameplay, Stadia does an incredible job of reducing that latency to being pretty much barely noticeable. In fact, Stadia held a solid 4K resolution throughout my entire gameplay session. The gameplay for the most part was very smooth, and I'm only noticing a few frame rate drops from now when I'm actually watching the footage back, which I honestly didn't notice at all while I was playing. Aside from one point where the game lagged for like 5 seconds as the textures loaded in. But this was actually something I experienced in the 2016 version of Doom, and I don't think it was anything to do with Stadia's latency because you could actually see the textures loading in. But for the most part, it was between 50 and 60 FPS, which for a cloud-based gaming software that removes the need to own a console or a gaming PC, that's pretty damn impressive, and I didn't even think that was possible. To be honest, the whole time I felt like I was actually playing on a desktop computer and not on a game that was being streamed through the cloud. I even checked the wiring to make sure they weren't tricking me. And yes, this is Doom Eternal as well, the pinnacle of fast-paced games, so it's the ultimate test for Google Stadia. Now, I'm not a first-person shooter guy, but apparently I was the only person to actually finish the demo out of all of the YouTubers that were invited to test Stadia and record it, which made me laugh because I'm terrible at first-person shooters. Full disclaimer though, I was obviously playing at the Google Stadia booth where the internet connection was obviously really good. So I'm keen to try this at home and at my parents' house to see how it actually performs in everyday situations. But obviously I don't see Google releasing something they're not 100% confident about. And what I saw here today really did back everything they've been saying up really well. But don't take my word for it, my friend Camelworks actually played Doom Eternal on both a dedicated PC and also streamed through Google Stadia in the public area, so he got to compare both. And he said he was really surprised with how good the 1080p 60fps experience was, with only a few frame rate drops. He did say, however, as a true diehard PC fan, he prefers playing it on a dedicated PC himself. I think the main appeal of Google Stadia is being able to play the latest games at 4K 60fps with 5.1 surround sound without needing to buy the latest console or spend $3,000 on a gaming PC and just not needing to wait for any downloads at all. It's just an on-demand instant game stream to your screen that lets you play wherever you want as long as you have internet connection. And I think it really does make gaming super accessible to those types of people. No matter if you're in a hotel or a holiday home or around a friend's house, you can still play your favorite games exactly from the same point you last left them. It's even been said in interviews that in some cases Stadia runs games better than their console counterparts. You can also play cross-platform with other players, and you can play split screen on games like Mortal Kombat or Grid as well. Speaking of games at launch though, you can check out the full list so far from the link at the top of the description below. Borderlands 3, Cyberpunk 2077, Watch Dogs Legion and Ghost Recon Breakpoint have already got me super excited. Stadia is just so accessible as a platform for game developers to release games on, so you definitely have nothing to worry about in terms of being left behind when something new comes out. Oh, and by the way, the controller also has a capture button, which is all done by the servers at Google. But now I want to talk about the Stadia controller, because this is honestly the best controller I've ever held in my life. I just love it. It takes the best parts of the Xbox controller and the PS4 controller and it makes something that just works really, really well. It's comfortable if you have big hands like me or small hands due to the ergonomic button placements. Me and my girlfriend Kim both really liked it. Just the shape and the tactile feel of it and how responsive the controls are, it was just a pleasure to play with. It also looks really minimal and modern as well, and I simply love it. It comes in a few colours that you can see here at launch, but also a limited edition Night Blue Founders controller, which you can only get if you pre-order the Founders edition of Stadia before it comes out in November. Which brings me on to my next point. How much does this service cost? Now there are two options. Firstly, the Stadia Pro version for $8.99 a month, which gives you 4K 60fps, 5.1 surround sound, additional free games, and you'll also get a discount on select games as well. Now, in my opinion, £9 a month for such a service, especially if you don't need to buy a console. I mean, you could play this for years and buy games, and you would be saving yourself a lot of money. To some people, that's definitely going to make a lot of sense. But secondly, you can get Stadia Base, which is coming some point next year, but it's completely free. The only drawback is you can only play at 1080p 60fps. It may, however, for some people make more sense to use this depending if you have slower internet speeds or not. What I'll be getting though is the Stadia Founders Edition, which includes 3 months of Stadia Pro for free, and another 3 months you can give away to a friend. And you'll also get Destiny 2, the collection, which has all the DLC in, and the Chromecast Ultra and a limited edition Night Blue controller, which, goddamn, it just looks awesome. You can go ahead and pre-order this yourself with free delivery from the link at the top of the description. But after this, I still had a few more questions, so now I'm going to show you guys my exclusive interview with the lead VP engineer at Stadia. But if you guys have any more questions after that, please comment them down below and I will do my best to answer them. When you first came in, we were just discussing about other cloud gaming platforms that have existed in the past. So what makes Stadia new and different?
So a lot has changed since the first introduction of cloud gaming. OnLive started in 2010, and they had some interesting ideas and very good tech. But the market and the technology behind it have changed dramatically. Broadband penetration increased, I would say, 4 or 5 folds since 2010. And the technology for real-time streaming as encoding, the video encoding technology has evolved a lot. We've been working on Stadia for almost 5 years now, and internally doing a lot of prototyping and a lot of research, and we improved that dramatically. And this is what you've seen earlier outside here, where ideally it's completely indistinguishable from playing the game locally on a very powerful PC under your desk.
And also, I think a lot of people are really intrigued to know about how exactly you reduce that latency to the point where, I mean, I was playing the game upstairs and it was like playing it on my PC at home. I really couldn't tell the difference at all.
The way we achieved this low latency, so it is indistinguishable, is thanks to a lot of work that has been going on at Google for the last 20 years. Google has been investing in its data center networking infrastructure since 2002. And we have all of our data centers, equipment very, very close to end users. So at least the physical distance between our servers and users is limited. But also, we've spent a lot of time on creating a buffer for latency. So what we call the negative latency, where we can have some techniques to give the game more time to react, and therefore it is accounting for any network delay that can be introduced. Wow. Between the Google infrastructure and these techniques, effectively running the game locally or running it through Stadia, you virtually can't tell the difference.
So even when you have obviously when the Stadia launches, you're going to have a ton of server traffic and lots of people playing the game at different time zones all over the world. Is that something that you've already got the infrastructure to deal with?
Yeah. So that's where Google excel. And we had a lot of learnings from search, where if you remember earlier on we introduced instant search, which means search would return result as you're typing. And that was the first thing that we've done in terms of scaling our low latency compute, but also from the learning from YouTube. There's more than 200 million users on a daily basis that are watching YouTube content, just gaming content on YouTube. So that's the scale that we get, and we are leveraging that same infrastructure to scale to as many users. So whether you have 1 user or 10 million users on Stadia, the latency or the performance will not change.
Oh, wow. Okay. So obviously, like you mentioned YouTube, and I'm an influencer, and Stadia has a lot of ways for us to, when we're streaming, to interact with the fans. So can you tell me a little bit about what your favorite features are and what you're most excited about people using?
So it's a feature where you as a creator, you might be playing the game, and you can invite your audience to participate in the game. Yeah. So rather than them actually playing that game, they are participating in it in a similar by influencing your action ways to communicate with you and guide you either through some challenge that you're having in the game, or introducing more challenges, where you have people that are watching the players, and then they can introduce, okay, I'm going to send them more ammunition, or I'm going to send them an obstacle somewhere. Oh, wow. And that's where you'll have that interaction between you and the audience.
So are you, because some of that stuff is very interactive within the game, are you going to be working with game developers to implement those kind of things further so it can be even more interactive?
Absolutely. So we have a few features that we talked about. So one of them was Crowd Boost. There's also Stream Connect and other. And we're introducing APIs and working very closely with developers so they can use them in the game. And we work with them actually on how to design it as part of their gameplay. So it doesn't feel like just latched on as a appendix, but more as part of the actual game.
Yeah. Okay. So how about like indie games and that kind of thing? Like, you know, there's obviously platforms like Steam that have campaigns behind getting indie games like out into the world for people to buy. Is that something that Stadia would still consider doing, that kind of thing with smaller companies?
Yeah. Stadia will support indie developers, and we have some program. And you can see even some of the games that we're bringing are from a smaller developers. And ultimately, we want to reach all developers. So for us, we want to democratize access to games, but also game development. And we want to make sure that all these indie developers get their chance to get their game in front of all of our users.
That's really positive to hear. So in terms of like saved games and community interaction, like obviously your community can jump into the game at like a certain point. How exactly like does that work? Like, do you like sort of upload the save of that game for people to then jump into through Stadia?
Yeah, so you're talking about State Share, which is a feature that we introduced at GDC. So the idea here is, imagine if you're playing ESO, for example, and you manage to solve a very big puzzle or a big boss that you manage to beat. What you can do is publish your gameplay, because we have always, you have the ability to publish a video of your gameplay on Stadia, but you can also add to that the state by which. The state is dependent on the game, so that state can include the level, the actual characters that are in the game, even your armor. If you have special armor, that will be part of that. And then that's all saved. And since any game on Stadia is really a URL, it's just a link. So we save all of that in a link, and when either your audience or your friends decide to click on that link and play the game, they will play the exact same state that you had.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they'll be able to say, hey, that challenge, maybe they managed to do it in faster time, or they couldn't do it and they try again, and they will be able to do that. So that's the idea, that you can build very interesting experiences around that state share.
I really like the idea of that, and I know, for example, especially in the gaming community, you've got like Dark Souls players trying to make the game even harder by running around naked and just doing it all with their fists, you know. So, I mean, you could almost have like a page on Stadia where you have like the top challenges that people still haven't managed to complete, and it's almost like a publicity thing to be like, oh wow, I've done that.
Absolutely.
Is that something you consider?
Yeah, and so the way... When we were thinking about it, this is exactly what we were thinking about. So it will depend on the game, and also depend on the gamers or the creators like you that decides to put it. So you can put it as part of your YouTube page, for example. Okay. All these challenges that you're putting to your audience, and if they manage to do it, you get them something special. But we're not prescriptive on this. So the goal here is we're enabling these experiences for developers and creators like you to be able to innovate them.
I love that. I mean, it sounds like a very interactive platform, and to the point where I'm like, is it just about streaming games? Because it seems to be almost like a social media element to it as well. Is it beyond that?
It's definitely beyond that. We believe streaming is core to our platform because there is the accessibility part, but also that tie-in between YouTube watchers and gamers. There's way more people that watch game than play game, and there's an interesting synergy between those two groups. But what we're looking at is, when you start thinking about the data center is really your platform as a game developer, you can start building experiences that are not possible anywhere else, and experiences that were not even possible even now unless you have a supercomputer under your desk. You imagine if you can have the whole power of the data center, millions and millions of processing units that allow you to build infinite worlds, or worlds that never stop evolving, and characters that feel extremely real in the game. So that's what we are hoping that developers would use.
How could you give me an example of that?
So currently, you look at the amount of realism in the world. It's bounded by how much compute you can run to run this simulation, whether you are running it on a console or on a PC. But in a world where you have the data center, you can have thousands of simulations running at the same time on a variety of servers in the data center, and get them back and make them part of your rendering. So then, for example, the waves would look way more realistic, or the human facial hair would look very, very real. So
it sounds like if a game developer was to literally build a game just for Stadia, that they could literally run crazy with the amount of hardware and things they can play with.
Correct.
Will you ever see VR on Stadia?
I mean, not immediately, but we won't rule it out. VR definitely would benefit from Stadia in terms of reducing the amount of hardware that's needed to put on your face. So that would be a clear benefit. And as we continue innovating and improving our streaming tech, it will serve VR.
I think it would be quite amazing. When I saw this controller, one of the first things I saw when it was just playing like a very 4K 60 FPS on a mobile phone screen, I was like, wow, you could literally put that with Google Glass on your eyes, and suddenly, you've got this incredible experience that you usually wouldn't be able to ever get to, but with a standard home PC.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, like, the amount of power needed to run Stadia on a mobile phone is similar to what you need to run Netflix. It uses less power than running Candy Crush on your phone. Wow. So in terms of if you want to build a new VR headset that has less power or less compute and less hardware on your face, it means that the battery lasts longer. It doesn't heat, so you can wear it for a longer time. So there's a lot of advantages to making that happen. But it's not now.
No, it's just obviously this is a hugely new piece of technology. I think a lot of people are very doubtful about and pessimistic because of what's happened in the past. But it seems like you have the infrastructure to back it up. And from what I played, I mean, I still can't really believe it because it was that advanced. And I was checking around at the plugs to see, okay, well, yeah, that's the only thing plugged in, and yeah.
This is actually, the demo outside is a real demo, and I invite all your viewers to go and play it. It's working from our production data centers. Actually, they are a few hundred kilometers away from here. And everything here is real, nothing is simulated.
I think I've pretty much asked you all my questions, so it was really nice to have you on, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you. Well guys, I hope you found this video very informative, and if you want to stay up to date in my future Stadia testing when I get it in my hands in my own home and test it at my parents' house as well, then make sure you subscribe and press that bell icon as well, and then YouTube will let you know when I release any future Stadia content for you guys to check out yourself. And finally guys, I just want to thank the Stadia team and the YouTube team for setting up this whole show and giving us the opportunity to have a hands-on and a lot of fun doing so. I got so much cool content that I didn't even get to put in this video because I wanted to keep it really condensed and to the point for you guys, so you didn't have to watch a super long video, but it ended up being pretty long anyway. Sorry about that. But guys, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. And again, leave any questions you've got down below. I'll do my best to answer them all. Goodbye.